Hi, Joanne. It's Rochelle
Hi,
here.
hi, Rochelle. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Sure.
I know we're slated to get started at 7:05, so we have a couple minutes, just you and me. Oh, actually, there are some people in here.
Nice.
Okay. Yep, we do have a couple people here in the session, which is great. Um, And I just want to let you know, Joanne, I'll wait until it's officially start time to give people more time because they're coming from other sessions. But just a
Okay.
reminder, there is about a 25-second delay from the time for when you speak to when the audience hears it. So if you ask people to post a question or something, just know that might take a little longer than
Okay.
expected.
Sounds good.
Yes. And then the other little trick that we're finding here today, um, the folks should have access to the Q&A to post questions. My goal was to help you moderate that, but for some reason the Q&A is not working on my side at this moment. So you might be on your own for a little bit with Q&A, which we can just leave a few minutes at the end. And my tech team is trying to figure it out to help me understand why my Q&A isn't up. But at the moment, I can't use my Q&A. So just wanted to let
Oh,
you know that.
okay. Yeah, that's fine. I just pulled it up and it was kind of not, it was spinning for a little while, but now it looks like it's up. So,
Okay, yeah,
um,
mine's just blank. So, but I'm gonna troubleshoot that while you're speaking, and if I get in, like I told you, I will help moderate questions in there, or also field questions for you so that you can answer them live.
okay. So it looks like someone just wrote, just to let Ann Santillo, just to let you know the link shared today is not working. The link from the February 3rd works.
Hmm, that's weird. It shouldn't have changed. Okay, our principal. I'm guessing she means the link that our principal shared out through School Messenger today,
Oh,
which
gotcha. Okay.
should have just been a repeat of what was already sent. So thank
Mhm.
you for letting us know. If I get any emails from parents saying they can't get in, I will tell them to go back to the February 3rd message. Um, okay, so we're going to give it just a couple more
So
minutes.
this is
Are you seeing anything
yeah.
else in the Q&A?
So it says there's 10 people. No,
Yep.
that's it. It says there's 10 people. I don't see the people though.
No,
Am I supposed to be able to see them?
no, you're not. In a town hall setting, you don't see them.
Oh, it's a town hall setting. Okay.
It's a town
Gotcha.
hall. Yep, yep.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay.
okay. My tech person's calling me, so I'm gonna mute and take this call.
Okay.
All right, it is time to officially begin. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rochelle Goff, and I'm one of the college and career counselors here at Radnor High School. And I'm so thrilled to have with us this evening Joanne Maldari. Is that how you say your last name?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
perfect. Who is an associate athletic director at the University of New Hampshire. And she's going to be speaking with us tonight about potential, for prospective student athletes looking ahead to the college competition level in college and NCAA and recruitment. And we are, have a short window of time tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to her to do a more complete intro, but wanted to let folks know that if you have any questions, you can post those in the Q&A and we will either answer them as we go or we will save some time at the end, just seeing how things play out tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Joanne. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks for having me on tonight. And good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be with you tonight. As Michelle mentioned, I am the Associate AD for Academics at the University of New Hampshire. I've been there for almost 30 years now, so a long time. Absolutely love my job, love working with student athletes, enjoy watching their development over those really important 4 years. And so love doing what I do. I have two adult sons, well, college-age sons. One just graduated from UNH, and he was on our track team, so Division I track athlete. And I also have a son who plays lacrosse at the Division III level. So not only does it my work life, but also my home life. I've with college athletes and knowing all the different things that are involved with eligibility, academics, and really all those pieces. I know it's an important time, lots of different things going on. And the NCAA, I'm sure you've heard, those of you that are either have sons and daughters who are thinking about playing in college, lots of different things in the media about extra years and pay to play and all that information. And it really is, it is overwhelming. It almost changes every couple months. I feel like there's a new rule from the NCAA or a new, story that we have to follow up on. So it definitely is a lot changing. Ever since COVID, a lot of things have changed. And so it's really important that students know what they're getting into, or working with the college coaches and their high school counselors, and really reaching out, really understanding what the expectations are, what the recruiting is like, and really asking a lot of questions, because there's so much changing now. It's not what it used to be, the typical 4 years, play a sport and graduate. So there's lots of different scenarios with students going to reclassing, with going to prep school, with going to junior college, lots of different paths now to into Division I or any kind of college athletics, and they're all great. They all work. And I've seen everything, and it really is dependent on the student, what their goals are, academically, where they're at. So all those pieces are really important that are taken into consideration. I'd like to, make this more about question and answer. As I'm not sure what you already know, what you need to know. I don't, I do know some of the eligibility certification of the coming in, those kinds of things I have information on. I don't work specifically in compliance. So if there's, I can try to help as much as I can about specific compliance questions. So really anything you'd like me to go over, I'm happy to address for you. So it looks like there's no questions yet. I guess I can talk about the 16 core courses. So those are to be Division I. Division 1 and 2 are pretty much the same regarding the requirements for academics. Division 3, there are no NCAA requirements. It's really up to each additional school what they for their admissions requirements. So that's a little bit more flexible in that regard. For the math requirements for Division I, you need 3 years of math at least. That's the minimum. You need 4 years of English. D2 is Division II is 2 years of math, but Division I is 3 years of math. A lot of schools want to see 4 if you're going to be going into, I know at UNH, if you want any kind of business degree or engineering, nursing, any of those other science degrees, 4 years is usually required. So again, if a student is looking at a particular major, you also want to consider that as well regarding the math. It doesn't have to be calculus either. I know sometimes students think, oh, they have to do calc or they have to do AP Calc. It's really not about that as much as being in math for 4 years. Because if students take a year off from math and then they have to jump back into it, that sometimes they struggle in that way. So just having that 4 years of kind of math, being engaged in math can make a big difference for students when they're making their transition from high school to college. There's everything else, the sciences, there's a lot more flexibility. Science and the social sciences, those are all more flexible. We always look at UNH for students who pretty much had a good college curriculum. Again, it does, at UNH, where love AP courses and dual enrollment classes are also great because I feel like they help students with getting credits transferred in, which is huge. Students can use those, kind of put them in the bank for later or use them right away, depending on their situation. So dual enrollment, I think, is great. It's not the pressure of the AP exams, but you do get some college credit and get experience in college courses. And so those kinds of things are really helpful. So as long as students have a balanced 4-year schedule is really what's important. It's not only going to help them with the eligibility center and getting that early, initial eligibility cleared right away, but it's also, again going to help them when they move to college. They're not getting hit with all these classes that they haven't had in a while. So again, trying to balance academics and athletics, whether you're D1 or D3. I see my son's having the same amount of hours of preseason training. It's a lot. And so being able to manage your time is crucial. They need to be able to keep their own schedules, keep their own assignments, because when they get to college, no one, we're there to help them, but the day-to-day, they really have to kind of have that skill already kind of embedded. Many student athletes are already pretty great about managing time because they know how. They've had to manage their practice schedules in their classes. But again, once they're on their own, if someone's doing for that the whole time, that can be really hard for them to learn that skill. So learning that skill early is really important for them to be able to translate that into college. Whether they keep planners, a lot of our student athletes still use the paper planners. They need that writing it down. They need the visual. So that's really helpful for them as well. Not so much people use the phones as much anymore, which is kind of interesting. So that's how it works, how it's really important to get those academic kind of skills kind of and those foundations done so that when you get to college, you can do it. Is there any other questions I can help with?
Because there is a delay, Joanne, I'm going to jump in with a couple of questions and give parents and students a moment to type something if they do have specific questions. So one of the things that we encounter a lot as counselors on the high school side is, the notion that if a student is a recruited athlete, that they're guaranteed admission. Can you just comment on that a little bit? And, and I know it will vary a little bit between the different divisions, Division I, Division II, Division III, regarding how much influence, athletics might have in admissions. But in general, just broadly speaking, can you comment on that notion that if I'm a recruited athlete, my transcript doesn't matter, I'm guaranteed to be admitted?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, I mean, that's kind of tricky. Like I know at UNH and plenty in our schools up in our conference and all, pretty much up in New England and all, we have a reviewing process. So that's one of my responsibilities is working with the coaches, and we submit our transcripts to our admissions office early. If they're looking at a student that they are interested in recruiting, we submit those transcripts to our admissions to get we call it a pre-read. to make sure that student is on the right track. They kind of have the basic, their grades are good. If they started off on low, they're trending upwards. So we do that so that so the coaches can go back to a student and confidently say, yes, we can continue recruiting you, and that you'll have a good chance of, and as long as you keep doing what you're doing, you'll be admitted. So we do have that process. A lot of schools have that process. Because a lot of schools, I'm not going to spend the time recruiting a student, or shouldn't be recruiting if the student's not going to have any chance to get in. So a lot of schools will do that kind of reviewing process. So if anyone's saying, oh, you're definitely in, I mean, some schools have spots. So some institutions have spots for athletes, like they can, they have a couple spots that they can use for a student athlete. But again, that student athlete, there are minimum requirements that athlete has to meet regarding the institution as well. So very, very few schools can just take a student if they're not meeting any, if they're not meeting any kind of academic requirements of the school. They mostly have to meet the minimum requirements to be able to become in, because in a lot of schools, because the NCAA rules are the way they are, you're not going to be eligible. So if you don't have those core courses and have good grades in those courses, you're not going to be eligible anyway. So, they kind of go hand in hand with making sure that you're doing well academically, so that when you do get recruited, that you are going to be able to be eligible. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And I am just going to share a cautionary tale that I have experienced on the high school side as a counselor. So I've had a student in the past that was working very closely with the coach. Coach was saying everything looks great, you're in, it's all good. It was a newer coach, which this could happen for anyone, right? Experienced coach, newer coach, whatever. It was the only application that the student submitted because the coach had said that she was good to go. And then next thing you know, admissions gets the application and she was not good to go. And there was a lot of conversation. It ended up working out for her in the end, thankfully. But I will say it was absolutely a panic moment for all of us, frankly, right? As her counselors, trying to support her through the process, for her family. So please do make sure, as athletic recruits, know that it's not a guarantee, that there does still have to be that academic pre-read. It can be really, really helpful in understanding your position as a prospective student athlete, and just kind of getting that affirmation that you are academically admissible from the lens of admissions, not just from the lens of a coach. And oftentimes there is a relationship. There might be a particular person in admissions that is the athletic liaison, meaning they're working with the athletic department, providing these pre-reads and having communications and meeting with coaches, just to make sure they are all on the same page, because you certainly don't want to end up in that panic situation that we had. And again, like I said, it worked out for her in the end, but it was a few weeks of sweating it out for sure. So, but yeah, just one cautionary tale. One other thing I just want to mention is we heard Joanne talk a little bit about NCAA courses and the requirements. Most of the classes offered at Radnor are NCAA approved courses. So when she says, you need 3 years of math, 4 years of English, whatever the subject area requirements are, most of our courses will meet that requirement. Not all of our courses. So that is something that you want to make sure you are working with your school counselor on tracking. If you are a prospective student athlete, you want to make sure that your course selection is aligns with your goal of being a prospective student athlete, and that you're not only just meeting like the number of I'm gonna pick on math because that's where we see it the most. If you're in any courses below Algebra 1, which we do have some students that come in to ninth grade as in intro to algebra, nothing below Algebra 1 will count as an NCAA approved math course. So that's just something to be mindful of if that's your math track. We just need to be mindful of how you proceed forward with math. And some classes that are like foundational classes, or some of our other courses might not be fully NCAA approved, or some are approved for half a credit, but not a full credit. But again, most of our courses are fully approved and good to go. But it's a good question to ask your school counselor if you know you're thinking about pursuing college level athletics, to make sure that you don't run into any snags come end of junior year or senior year, when, the time, we don't, it's harder to course correct at that point,
Mhm.
right? So that's great. And then Joanne, can I ask you another question, just to share with the audience your thoughts on, and this is a tricky one. It does depend a little bit by sport. But what would be your recommended timeline for student athletes who, are thinking about pursuing collegiate level athletics? Like, what do you think is important by grade level, how they're approaching this process?
Yeah, thanks, Michelle, because I see a couple questions have come in about specifically that, about timeline for connecting with coaches. Yeah, I mean, I think, coaches is, they really can't do, that every sport is a little different with regarding the recruiting timelines. Like some, like football, they have certain periods when they can be talking to students and when they can't. I mean, it never hurts to reach out to a student. And a lot of schools and the athletic departments, in their sports will have a recruit questionnaire. So I think you can really do that anytime. I mean, I would say, probably not, ninth grade, you can start thinking about it maybe, but, the coaches really can't talk to many students in ninth grade. Maybe 10th grade, you can start reaching out and doing those questionnaires, or maybe, seeing what the school is like, doing your own research on websites about what different schools are, or following them, following the teams or following the athletic departments is really a good way to see, kind of what goes on. So I would say, 10th grade is a good time maybe to start looking at the different in the recruiting questionnaires. Every sport has one. You can fill those out, and then, the coaches will look those over, and, if they're allowed to, depending on the time of the year and those kinds of things, they can reach back out to you, and do that as well. So that is a really good time to probably start, just looking on what's out there. I think it's a good way to start getting a feel for what's out there. Sometimes students will find a player they really like, and they'll follow that player, and that's sometimes a good way to get an insight on what the college, like being a college athlete, is really like too. The signing process. Someone asked about the signing process. We see a lot of students, they commit, right? They verbally commit, students verbally commit before they actually sign something. And a verbal commit is okay, but it's non-binding. So it doesn't mean, it means something, but it doesn't mean something. You don't really have, it's not really a full commitment, in the sense that, if you could verbally commit, but then if your grades aren't great, you won't get in. And so you can't fall back on that verbal commitment. So verbal commitment, I know a lot of students will do that, like even junior year, some, even earlier for the really high level schools sometimes. And that's just, but that also doesn't bind you to the school so as well. So, it kind of works two ways. So this, you don't have to go to that school. If something else changes, you only give a verbal commitment, you can change. And the same thing can happen in the other way. The school can also sometimes change. So that's why verbal commitments are okay, but you got to remember that it can work both ways. And about signing, usually we have, every sport has signing dates when they can sign athletes. You usually typically can't sign till maybe like junior year. We have some athletes signing now in our senior year, when you can sign and actually commit to commit to that school. And again, it's still relied upon you getting in. But as long as you've had that pre-read from admissions, or that what you're on track to be admitted, then there shouldn't be any issues. Sometimes students, we know like a little bit of a cautionary tale is we've seen students commit, sign that agreement, have the big celebration or the big picture in the gym when they're signing with their families, and then they in November, and then they're like, great, I'm in. And then they decide, what, I'm in to college, I got my scholarship, I can just take a break, I can just kind of put my feet put on the brake with school. And then it ends up you don't do well, or the grades go really down, the university still has the right to rescind that admission, or you may not be admitted in the first place. And we've had that happen a couple times, and it's similar to that other example you gave, Rochelle. It's very stressful, and no one wants to be in that situation. So signing is a great thing, but you also still have to keep up your grades, so to not put yourself in that kind of situation. The high school coaches in the recruitment are really important. They can make, they can talk to the coaches about you, either write or call with recommendations about you. They, sometimes know different schools that may be a better fit for you if they've been, in recruiting, having a lot of athletes from your team go to college. I think they can be great resources. I know our coaches will, often reach out to the high school too to find out, how you are as a person, a teammate, all those kinds of things is also really valuable for them when they're recruiting. It's not just on paper and on film or what you're doing on the field or on the court. Really, what kind of teammate are you, and those kinds of other tangibles that, make you an asset, not only to the team, but to the university.
Yeah, you just mentioned, it's Rochelle chiming in again. You just mentioned something that's important about the coaches and the role that your coaches can play in this process. And I think, one of the big shifts that we've seen in athletics over the last, decade and a half or so is the role that high school coaches play versus club coaches. As we've seen youth sports and then, even high school sports become more of a year-round thing where students are playing for their high school team, but then maybe also playing for a club team, in the case of a team sport. And, maybe they're going to showcases where there's many college coaches present, or ID clinics and, these big recruiting events. So for those students, you may be working more with your club coach than your high school coach. It really does depend on the sport. It like track, for example, which was my sport in college. It's still very much a high school coach, your high school coach. You don't, you might be running club track, but really, your high school coach is a bigger piece there. But we're seeing a lot with, like lacrosse and soccer and field hockey. There's a lot more involvement with club coaches. So, just note that both of those people are valuable to you. And another thing just to mention for students in particular is, I always say to my student athletes, you are in the driver's seat here. Don't sit back and wait for coaches to come knocking on your door. That's extremely flattering when that happens, but it's not a guarantee. There's so many athletes out there, at a high level. And sometimes, frankly, coaches their passion is actually coaching their sport. A lot of coaches recruit because it's part of their job, but not necessarily the part that they love. They love their sport. And so, some coaches are really into the recruiting piece, some are less so. And so if you're interested in a college and you're interested in an athletic program at that college, please don't sit back and wait for the coach to reach out to you. Absolutely get on their websites, complete those prospective student questionnaires. When you're a sophomore, definitely a junior, and make yourself known and make your interest known to coaches often and early, often being, not too often, but letting them know that you're interested because, there's a lot of student athletes, they can't see all of you, right? And so if you put yourself on their radar, and I know a lot of students now are also using different online platforms to get themselves noticed. But yeah, use those tools, use all of those opportunities to put yourself on the radar of a coach so that, you don't get missed and you are on their radar. So yeah, just be in the driver's seat. Absolutely.
Yes. And we, you talked about club. Yeah, my son played lacrosse. And so, yeah, the summer tournaments, all the tournaments were the college coaches. So you're correct that the club coaches really are involved, but it depends on the sport as you also indicated. And I know, like for my son, both the high school and the club coaches were involved. So it really depends on the school, kind of, and those kinds of things. But yeah, you definitely want, any coaches that can speak on your behalf is ideal. If you just joined a club team and that club coach may not know you as well as your high school coach, I would use both coaches, because that high school coach maybe has known you for 4 years on a varsity team and can speak to you as a person, as a hard worker, your work ethic, all those kinds of things, which again is what coaches want to learn. They want to know about you as a person as well. And so, yes, to the question, follow-up question about the recruiting questionnaire or email the coach. Yes, yeah, absolutely. To Rochelle's point too, you can absolutely do both. It doesn't hurt to reach out in that way, because especially if, coaches if there's little pockets of the country that maybe coaches aren't getting to, if there's no big tournaments where you are, that's always helpful to either send film or, stay in touch with those coaches or send swim times or track times. I know our track coaches really don't get out a lot to recruit. For finance, they don't have tons of recruiting money to go out. So they rely a lot on emails and, sending it. That's a little bit easier, like swimming and track, because you can actually send times, which is what coaches are really looking at in those sports.
Great. I just want to mention another thing regarding the NCAA eligibility process. So another thing that has come up, and again, I'm just using, our experience here on the high school side, working with student athletes. A lot of times student athletes think that they've registered with the NCAA Eligibility Center. But a few years ago, the NCAA started to offer 3 different options for eligibility registration. And option 1, if you go to the NCAA Eligibility Center, their website, if you can just literally Google NCAA Eligibility Center, you'll see as you scroll down to register, there's 3 different options. Option 1, which is a free profile page account. That is something you can absolutely initiate in your earlier years, even as, early as middle school, 9th grade, that's fine. But that is not that will not give you access to the full NCAA eligibility process. You actually will have to do option 3, which is the academic and amateurism certification account. And that's for student athletes hoping to do Division I or Division II sports that are governed by the NCAA. And that's going to look at what we've already mentioned, your academic eligibility, and then the amateurism, making sure you're not already considered a professional in your sport, because you do still have to be considered an amateur to compete in NCAA Division I or Division II. So just keep in mind, I have a lot of students that will say, I already registered, I signed up a year ago. We as a high school submit your transcripts to the NCAA at the end of your junior year, and then again at the end of your senior year. So at the end of junior year to initiate that academic review, and then the end of the senior year to finalize the academic review and the amateurism. And so many times students say, I'm registered, and I don't see them in our system. And I'm like, you're not registered. And as it turns out, they registered under option 1, which does not prompt us as a school to do anything for them. So just make sure you're registering under option 3. And there is a fee associated with that. It's pretty hefty. It's $100. If you qualify for fee waivers, just like with anything else, we can help you out with that there as well. So I just want to make sure folks understand the different options under Eligibility Center, and that you need to ultimately do option 3 for D1 or D2. Okay. I don't know if you're seeing anything else in Q&A, because again, it's a mystery to me.
Yeah. There was just one more question up. I missed. I apologize. They may have left now, but SAT and ACT requirements, and we don't really. Yeah, there's no really. The ACT and ACT is now optional, so it's not really used for eligibility anymore. And actually, and again, it's institution specific, but a lot of institutions have also made it optional now, so students don't have to take it. For the most part, again, depending on the institution. Some institutions tie it to some scholarship, academic scholarship money, again, but that's by institution. So you would just have to double check those requirements as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. We've reached time, and I just want to, again, Joanne, thank you so much for joining us this evening and sharing your experience on the higher ed side and supporting student athletes in their journey. Students and families, please don't hesitate to meet with your school and or college counselor here at Radnor if we can help you further and answer any more questions that you may have. So thank you everyone for being here.
Yes, thanks for having me. I'm happy to answer questions in the future as well.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Bye.